Skyroot Vikram S.
Event number 98.
The one thing which I've learned in the entire journey is like rocket science is rocket science.
If things goes as per schedule, you will be the first private company out of India to actually put a real satellite in orbit, which is going to be massive milestone.
Mars, there's an opportunity every 2 years to launch to Mars with the pace at which SpaceX is pushing. In 4 opportunities or max 5, I think man can be landed on Mars. So right now the space market totally is like $400 billion. Over $100 billion is government budgets. Out of the $100 billion, more than 60 is only US. I think it's technically possible to do space tourism at a ticket cost of few lakhs. The moment you go to space and you see Earth from space, you feel like it's one single entity. Probably you feel like, why are we having all these divisions? Humanity is one. If you actually melt water on Mars, you'll have a kilometer deep of ocean across the surface of Mars. By doing big bold things, the probability of success is actually high. Because people want to invest in you. They want to work with you. Governments want to support with you.
Welcome back to SparX.
Yeah, well, wonderful to be back, Mukesh.
You have to have, I think you have one of the coolest jobs in India. You are building this rocket company. You spend time with, ministers, prime minister, travel around the globe. That must be really cool. Let's start there, How is it, what does it feel like to be running an actual rocket company, which is building real rockets? You already had one successful launch, more coming up, but what does it feel like?
Oh, wonderful, Mukesh. In fact, it really keeps me going every day. The moment I get up every morning, I want to go to office. I'm really, really excited with work every day. Because you need to actually stretch our mind every day, to sort things out and to keep things moving. Because the tech is so difficult. It's quite exciting and glamorous as well. And and also we are doing something very unique in India. So that excitement is there. The team is also, it's really exciting to work with a very energetic team, also very young team. We have, I think our median age is like 27 or 28. A lot of young team members. It's very bright. A lot of freshers from college who are so excited to take on this tech, etc. So I think it is it's a very enjoyable journey, but has a lot of its own challenges, which is also quite exciting, to overcome all those challenges and then move forward.
So what does the day-to-day look like, for people who, we can all visualize how does a software company look like, or a FMCG company look like.
Yeah.
But you have to peek inside a, rocket company.
Yeah.
What happens on day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So how, in fact, how we designed our office is that the factory floor is at the center. And then the office space of people, designers and everybody working is around it. So, and it's all glass. So everybody can see the workflow. And as the things are moving, we have a lot of testing, a lot of manufacturing happening on the floor. So every day, a lot of hardware keeps coming, rolling. And then designers keep, on the desk, they do all the simulations of various kinds. And then also get to see the actual product being created out in the factory floor. And also participate in assembly, testing, So it's like you can see things rolling out and then, assembling towards coming together at one place, while from design till the rocket is shipped out.
So people are working in their offices and then just from the window, they can look down and they can see the actual rocket being manufactured.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's in fact it's entirely glass, all the partition is fully glass. So they can, everybody has a view of the floor.
Yeah.
And it's all it's multi-floored and everybody has a view of the floor.
Wow, amazing. So literally you are just whole day, you are in, you know exactly what you're building, it's not shipped to some remote facility where, design is being.
Exactly where we are, we'll get a feel of things. And then the more important is you design something and then, bringing it to life in the same facility.
Yeah.
That brings a lot of excitement.
So you've set up your entire manufacturing in-house in some ways, very little of what you're building is outsourced. Is that deliberate choice or there's no other option? Why is it that, you have this fully integrated, you're doing everything from design all the way to manufacturing of the smallest components?
So it's a very deliberate thing because typically originally, when we started off, we thought it should be very asset light, and that's what will make us go faster, etc. is what we thought. But what we realized is as we started going into the market, to the suppliers, etc., it was taking way long than what we imagined, because every supplier has its own priorities, and then so we'll be one of their several priorities. So in fact, I remember like in one scenario where a very critical part we need to get it in 6 months, and it took us like 18 months to get that. So and then we decided then I think is the best investment we're going to do is build our own factory and when we control our timelines, control the quality. We also saw that like a lot of quality issues also coming up at some suppliers, etc. So we thought like we'll have full control on things, and after that, I think once a factory is set up, I think we had like full control on what we're building, when we want to roll out the products, and and then we can iterate fast. Many times we see that the designs might not work also. So we want to iterate fast, and then you have to quickly again go to the machine and build a new part.
Yeah.
So I think that it transforms really how we build things quicker and faster and in a more controlled fashion.
That's amazing. And in the process, I think you are also able to innovate, right? Some of the things you are doing,
Yes.
you're among the very few people, are probably first in the world to do.
Yeah.
Can you talk about some of what is unique about the way you are building out?
Yeah. So first time in the space sector in India, and one of the very few in the world to build an all carbon fiber vehicle. The entire airframe, what it is called, or the entire outer structure of the rocket is like built with carbon composite, and then there's the lightest. It's like a carbon composite is like 5 times lighter than the most strengthiest steel, and then like even has more strength than the most strongest steel basically. So that way we're making the rocket lighter, and then it took a lot of time for us to master the manufacturing techniques. There's a lot of it has a lot of detail in it, and then both in design and also manufacturing. So it took us some time to actually undergo that process, learn how to build, manufacture carbon composite structures, and then pressure vessels, and then now like it's become faster, and hardly I think we had any failure in any of the parts we have built with our own process. So I think that builds up that confidence that that we have that kind of we build that kind of depth in building these structures. That is one unique aspect. Second is that we have like one of the stage of the rocket is having like the final stage, which actually puts the satellite into orbit. It uses liquid fuel, and then it is a special type of liquid fuel called hypergolic fuel, where like it just ignites when the fuel and oxidizer start. It just ignites without any requirement of an igniter, and then as many times as you want, you can restart the engine. You can move in space. After like one orbit, you can go to the next orbit. So it increases the mobility and then extends the service which the rocket does.
Yeah.
And so that engine is like, it has like a lot of engines, and the central engine is like fully 3D printed. It's typically, a rocket engine has like hundreds of parts, all like, manufactured in conventional ways, and then assembled, welded together, stitched together in various ways. And then like you have, because there's so many parts coming together, so many failure points also. But what we did is that we made all that into 3D printing. So 3D printing is like, it's like magic. Literally, you go to a machine and it melts metal powder, and then builds layer by layer. And you get a rocket engine in a few days. So what typically is a cycle of it could take more than a year is just few days now.
Amazing.
So that is one unique tech, and it's ideal for building rocket engines because they have like very intricate shapes. You have like channels to cool the rocket, because inside the temperature is like 3000 degrees, and it will melt anything. What the fire in the rocket melts literally everything. So you need to cool it down. You need those channels to cool it, and then the margins are very thin. So that way I think
rocket science sometimes can actually be rocket science.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing which I've learned in the entire journey is like rocket science is rocket science. So as an entrepreneur, you have to be like very optimistic, saying that we can build it and we can do it easily. This is what the entrepreneur has to think to actually make it happen. But the more we get into it, I realize that it's so complex. Literally, I mean, it's rocket science is rocket science.
So what does it take to work at Skyroot? How does one qualify to be a rocket scientist to work at Skyroot?
Yeah. So firstly, when we started off, right, in 2018, we are like one of the initial companies in the space sector. And then there was absolutely no talent in the private sector at that time. All talent was in ISRO, basically. And at that time, what we did is that we went to auxiliary industries which have similar skill sets. Maybe they're not building a rocket, but they're building an aircraft structure, or they're building like an engine and a combustor in some other field, etc. So that is one defense. And the ancillary industries which have related tech. We got a lot of talent from them. And then we trained a lot of people, hundreds of people over the last 6 years, made them rocket scientists from scratch. People passing out of college, fresh out of college, having no clue of what a rocket is. And then they became like really wonderful rocket scientists over the last 6 years.
Outstanding. And so last year you had a very successful, suborbital launch where you proved some of the critical components which will be required for the full-fledged rocket. And from what I understand, you have built the rockets, you have tested many stages and very close to doing the actual launch where you'll be able to put a satellite in the orbit. So how's that coming along?
Yeah, it's going good. In fact, that suborbital launch helped us a lot. It proved a lot of technologies, which gave us a lot of confidence. And then now the next orbital launch is a few months away. And we tested like second stage successfully, third stage successfully. And then a first stage is just like few weeks to testing. Basically, it's set closer to the test bed, ready for testing in the coming weeks. So once that test happens, it's a very, very huge stage. Stage 1 of the rocket is like very massive. It produces a thrust of 120 tons. It can, just think about like 60 elephants. It can lift 60 elephants. That kind of a thrust it has. It's a very massive rocket stage. So that is, I think, the key critical step for us towards launch. It's a few weeks away. Once that happens, probably in few months from there, we'll get to a orbital launch. And most of the testing, etc., we are in the last phase of testing, and hopefully we'll see a orbital launch in the coming months.
So why don't you also explain this bit in some more detail? Just for people to help just visualize this, your orbital launch rocket with the thrust of over 100 tons. Is how big is it? How wide? How tall? And what does even stage 1, 2, 3 mean? What is the job of each stage?
Sure. Yeah. So basically every rocket, in fact, Earth has a very huge gravity well, So to go to space, to go to orbit, you need to have a lot of energy, because Earth's gravity is so high that it keeps pulling it back. So it's a rocket with a fuel. It's today till now we don't have technology where a rocket you fill it with a fuel and it goes to orbit. Because so what happens is that as a single stage, you cannot do it in a single stage right now. Technology has not evolved to an extent where you can with a single stage you reach orbit, because the energy is so huge. Because you have to carry that mass of that structure also to structure engines to orbit. So there is a hack now in rocket tech which was invented like several decades ago, that instead of going single stage, the best way to reach orbit is going multi-stage. So it's more like a hack to reach orbit. So what we do is that you burn the amount of propellant and then you consume it in one stage and remove that mass. So you're actually not carrying that mass up.
Okay, so you can lighten your rocket. You just use that stage only until you're burning the fuel, and then you jettison that.
Jettison that. So basically, you're not taking all the mass which you're lifting off until orbit. You're shedding off weight as you go up. So that's the only way you can reach orbit. That's why you need like multi-stage. So our vehicle has 3 core stages, and there is something called a kick stage. That kick stage, we call it as an orbit adjustment module. So it goes to orbit and adjusts the orbit and then goes to multiple orbits, etc. It's more like, last mile mobility, the final stage. And then the first 3 stages actually increase the velocity of the rocket and altitude of the rocket until it reaches the rocket.
So each stage is good for till what height? Like your orbit is going to 500-600 kilometers.
Yeah, 500-600 kilometers.
So break it down stages.
Yeah, so the first stage will go like around like 50-60 kilometers. And then second stage is like 150-200 kilometers. And then the third stage almost goes to orbital altitude. Fourth stage does the corrections and gives the final kick and the corrections. Etc. So and finally it reaches that 500 kilometer orbit.
So once you come out of Earth's atmosphere, do things become easier because there is less drag and all that?
Yeah, correct. So what happens is the rocket to lift off, you need like a heavy engine at the bottom, right? Because the full rocket is there, all the mass is there. So the first stage is generally bigger, very huge, because you need a lot of thrust. So that's what our first stage which is yet to be tested. That's the thrust is so high, more than 100 tons, to lift off the full rocket.
Right. What is the weight of the whole rocket?
It's like over 40 tons. Yeah. And then like it is in multiple stages. And then first stage takes it to certain altitude. It's beyond atmosphere, almost like, the thicker parts of atmosphere, it crosses the first stage. And the second stage takes on. And then like, the third stage takes on after that. And then finally we reach up.
So you're looking to do your orbital launch in the coming quarters.
Yeah.
And if things goes as per schedule.
Yeah.
you will be the first private company out of India to actually put a real satellite in orbit, which is going to be massive milestone. So it's like everyone Skyroot right now is like, all hands on deck situation.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like we have been waiting for this milestone for a very long time, and so it's not only a big milestone for India; it's big milestone globally because very few companies in the world are able to achieve it. There's a very lower single digit number of companies are able to reach orbit so far, and it's like literally one of the biggest leaps in now in the space industry. Reaching orbit is a big leap, and very few companies are able to do it. So I think it's like putting India on a global map.
So this is like what single digit numbers now, the private space company which are able to do.
Yeah. So right now operational space companies are like from US is like only 3-4 companies, and then like China has few companies, and then like Europe is yet to have in the private sector, like and then like that's it. Rest of the world, then there's India.
So look, space is also very exciting. A lot of people have interest.
Yeah.
And I think, and also I think India has a lot of interest in promoting the space industry. As a result, as a Skyroot gets a lot of visibility. We're part of many even Prime Minister delegation to I think France recently.
Yeah, correct.
So what is just the overall engagement that you have with the government? What is government interest in boosting this sector?
Yeah. So in fact, like when we started Skyroot, right? In fact, probably our expectation was that policy would take 10 years. Right. Might take long. So we were like all in saying that, okay, let the policy come, we'll work our best and towards it. But surprisingly, if you've seen, like policy was announced in 2 years of starting Skyroot, and then like, then a new agency is formed and then everything is done. So government is having a great vision for space sector, especially our Prime Minister. So he has seen like how space can enable India. Right from because like right from like agriculture and right from urban planning, right from weather predictions and disaster management. I think India has been using space a lot, and also one very good example which I like is that fishermen use a lot of space technology, and then there's something called potential fishing zones, which ISRO satellites tell where to find the potential fishing. Yes, that saved billions of dollars of fuel to fishermen. And then probably next time we have a fish on a plate, it's actually having helped by a satellite. The fisherman is helped by a satellite to go and find the fish in the most efficient way. So I think it has transformed lives, and it's great that the government recognized it. And then we had a 60-year heritage in the country, so starting in 1960s. So to untap it and for more investments to come in, to go global, the government decided that let's open up the sector to private players. And then when the government brings up a policy, they have to handhold until it becomes mature. Yeah. So they are doing it really well. I would say they're like constant touch with us, and then they enable us every roadblock. They see that like everything is done, and then they also see that we are well represented. In fact, like I was super surprised with the French delegation. So they selected like the top 15 CEOs from India and 15 CEOs from France. Just imagine like a startup company, who a very small startup company, being part of a top 15 CEO delegation in India. So there was, I think, 3 or 4 startups represented in India. And from the French side, we hardly saw any startups. So the government actually is promoting startups as like as very important part of India. So that is, I think, that gives a lot of boost and confidence for us, and their handholding on the journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. And India obviously has pretty long history of investment and success in space industry, and ISRO has been leading that. So recently, India celebrated success of landing on the south side of the moon.
Correct.
With Chandrayaan 3, I think.
Yeah.
And now there is Chandrayaan 4 planned. There is, correct, I think this mission, what is called? SparX is planned.
SparX is planned.
Right. And even the manned mission is coming up.
Yeah.
So what are some of the missions that you are watching out for, that ISRO is planning in the coming years that you're personally excited about?
I think I'm very excited about the manned mission. It's called Gaganyaan program, where astronauts or Indian astronauts will be launched by Indian rocket to space. They'll stay in space for a few days and going to safely come back. So till now, I think Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma was the only Indian to go to space, but they went on a Russian rocket to a Russian space station and there's a Russian space capsule. So till now, India, we yet to send a human with our own launch vehicle. So this will be a historic moment, because we have that capability and the government has approved the program. And then like all the kind of technology is being built right now, and we are just like a couple of years away from launching our own astronauts. A set of astronauts are selected, and they're all trained in Bengaluru, and then right now they're being trained in the US as well. So, and then like in just a couple of years, they'll be reaching orbit and coming back safely. That's something is a very big leap in the space sector. Growing human space flight is one leap. One is launching satellites. Next is like putting humans in space and bringing them back safely.
Yeah,
And it's a giant leap. I'm really looking forward to this. And then Chandrayaan 3 is like has literally put India amongst like the best high precision tech players globally, and it has shown that India can build great tech. Because very few countries are able to achieve it. India is like the fourth country to achieve it, and the first country to land on the South Pole. So it's a big laurel for the country. And then Chandrayaan 4 is like going one step ahead. So it's going to bring back a sample from the moon.
amazing.
So it's going to land and then bring back a sample from the moon. So that's also a very exciting mission.
And what is the technology for that? So how does it lift off from the moon, and is going to there's a rocket waiting for in the orbit to bring it back?
Yeah. So the module goes to orbit, and then that same module actually comes back to Earth as well. And then there is a re-entry module which can re-enter the Earth's atmosphere and then come back. So this mission is like has its own challenges, because landing is one thing, bringing back, and then you have to bring back in the Earth's atmosphere, which is like it's like even meteors get burnt out, right? So that high thick atmosphere, will be a lot of heating while coming back, right? It's very difficult to survive Earth's gravity and then reach back. It's actually re-entry is tougher than going to orbit. So that's the reason why you see a lot of things going up, but very little things coming down. So that's where like the technology is like quite complex in it is coming all the way back from moon back to Earth.
So Chandrayaan 4 is planned next year or 26?
No, it'll take like 4 years.
4 or 5 years. So the manned flight will happen first. That's planned for 26.
Yes. Yeah, that's planned
That's
for 26.
obviously going to be a massive milestone. I think everyone will be glued to television,
absolutely.
watching every second of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
And we already have the launch vehicle, etc. We already have everything.
Yes. So launch vehicle is already there, and then that the module, the crew module, is also like looks to be in like the final stages. And then like it's more like crew training is something which is very important right now, because the crew needs to be trained for the entire mission, and then first of its type mission which we're doing as a country. And then like and then all it just safety has to be so good that so much testing has to be done, so much training has to be done to again take and then bring them back.
I think these astronauts are going to be celebrities. I think they'll become household names after the mission is done. Have you met these guys?
No. So in fact, like they are a little bit down on the limelight now, because the government wants to wait for the missions to happen, because otherwise probably maybe because it will be like a
too much hype will build up.
Too much hype will build up before the launch, maybe because of that. So it's right now it's low profile right now. So it's like now they're going to do a mission with with the US where like they'll be launched to the space station, and then they'll be undergoing all the training for that mission, and so that they're targeting very soon. And already their astronauts are in the US for that mission. It's called Axiom mission. And then it's going to and then they're going to come back here, and then like we'll do our mission here. I'm sure like there'll be like big inspiration for like decades to come.
And so we have this manned flight, then Chandrayaan 4, but slightly ahead, I think India is already working on our own space station, as well as the serious plans for landing on moon.
Correct.
On next 1 or 2 decades, right? So can you talk about that?
Yeah, so, sure. So I think like India decided to have our own space station, and by 2035 we want to like put together a space station which will have like 5 modules, etc. And then like our own space station built from scratch. And a lot of exciting work is already happening in designing all the space station modules. We have like a budget approval as well to take things forward, and that is also like a very important leap. I mean, like I think we're moving super fast in the last few years, and then like space is going to take a leap right now. Like manned missions, having our own space station, and then sending a man to moon is going to be by 2040 is also like a big milestone which needs to be achieved. It needs like bigger rockets to be built. It needs like more technology to be built, and all this in the next decade is like something very exciting to look into.
That's amazing. So people who have interest in space and people who take pride in India making strong strides in this sector. I think a lot to watch out for, and it's it looks like all these programs are fully funded. We have the technical capabilities and the will to do all this, right? So
Absolutely.
exciting breakthroughs literally every year. Speaking of manned mission, both to orbit for India as well as potentially going to moon. Is that globally also now? Are you going to see a lot more return of manned mission to moon in near future? Is there other programs by NASA or SpaceX? What's the to expect this decade?
So basically there's a program called Artemis program, where like the US wants to go back to the moon, of course collaborating with many other countries and everybody else, and then they want to put like a base on the moon basically as quickly as possible. And then all effort is going there, like a lot of private companies building exciting stuff to land spacecraft on the moon as well. And all the technologies are being built to be able to survive on moon, like people to be on the moon, all the required cargo, everything. So all the technology is spurred right now. So I think this is going to happen in as soon as possible. I mean, like
this decade.
Yeah, this decade it should start. All the momentum should start this decade, and then so I think 1969 was when
the first one. I think last one was 74, 75.
Yes, yeah. So just few years, and that's it. After that, man never.
Yeah, it's been 50 years now.
Yeah. So I think this is the first time we're going to go back to the moon, but to stay there. So it'll be like a base there continuously, and then people will be staying there continuously, learning how to stay in space for a very long period of time. And on a different object in space, like the moon. Basically, in International Space Station, people have been staying for the last 25 years, and then some astronauts have stayed there for more than a year. 7 astronauts stayed in the International Space Station in a single mission for more than a year. So that we have already done, like staying long in space, but now like staying in a different celestial body is the next leap.
And to push the frontiers of space exploration, SpaceX continues to really deliver one breakthrough after another. There was a lot of excitement about their recent re-entry vehicle, which is in the so-called chopstick catch. So it looks very impressive when you watch the video. And we'll put a clip on that as we're in this episode. But how technically complex is that? Is that really a big deal? Like, can you describe why was there so much excitement about that chopstick catch?
So just because it's the largest flying object ever. So the Starship vehicle which SpaceX has built is so huge. I mean, like it's several, I think a couple of 100 tons of a moving object falling back to Earth, and then you're catching with 2 chopsticks. Right? So this is something like it's a technological marvel, I would say, in that way, because the SpaceX has landed a lot of rockets back. But then catching it very precisely for a very very quick time, and then building a tower, and then 2 sticks, and then catching it as it comes down is a technological marvel, I would say. And then that is also very important to have a fully reusable vehicle, because Falcon 9 previously was a partial reusable vehicle. Now there is a fully reusable vehicle, so you need to cut down as much mass as possible to be able to go to full reusability. So they managed to remove the landing legs, then catch it with a ground chopsticks from the ground. So you cut down a lot of weight on the rocket which goes up. It's a leap forward, which towards full reusability, which they chose as the design, and then it looks like phenomenal. So this was still stage 1, right, for Starship. While it is massive, I think the stage 1 itself about some 19-story building high, which is just incredible. You visualize the tall tower is 90-story falling from sky, and you're literally require millimeter level precision to be able to catch it. Yes.
So with that kind of weight, and I don't know how much momentum it will have, falling down.
Yes, absolutely. So that's, I think that's really wonder of tech, basically. And of course, they had a long learning curve of precisely putting a very heavy object at one location, but then catching it, and then coordinating it, and then building those arms which can catch a 200 ton falling object. and then like precisely controlling it to, if you see in the video, it's like, in fact, it almost looked as if it's going to crash.
Yeah.
Till the last moment we felt it's going to crash, and then like, it suddenly tilted, became very, stable, and then, it just landed. It's like, it's very inspiring to see that.
And this is also a huge leap forward, right? What this means is, and if you, let's say, once it is more polished,
Yeah.
these first stages going up, launching, coming back, and you just literally need to just refuel it,
Yeah.
and you're ready for next launch. I mean, that's probably going to future. And if humanity needs to become spacefaring species, we'll need this kind of completely fast, reusable vehicles, right? And that's why SpaceX is really moving the needle forward.
Yes.
In fact, the Starship is also very crucial for all the planned Mars explorations, right? Which I think those plans are also getting pretty serious now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is that's the only major serious attempt to go to Mars. So, and then like the vehicle is built for Mars. So to like launch tons and tons of cargo to Mars, and eventually people to Mars. And the objective is to establish a self-sustaining colony in Mars. So I think the vehicle is built perfectly for that. That's why it's like quite massive. It can like, go for interplanetary travel. And then like, and you need to reduce the cost so much that it is really, it's possible to go to Mars, put so much, tonnage to Mars. Yeah.
But what is your, say for most people right now thinking that, we'll say humans landing on Mars seems like science fiction.
Yeah.
What is your understanding? You think that there are serious efforts underway? Will we see, that happen in next 1 or 2 decades where the actual humans going to Mars?
Yeah. So looking at like how SpaceX is moving, especially with Starship, right? So my guess would be like, so Mars, there's an opportunity every 2 years to launch to Mars. So the next opportunity, the last opportunity was like last month, the next opportunity is 2 years from now. And then there's another opportunity every 2 years. So basically, I think in 4 opportunities or max 5, I think a man can be landed on Mars with the pace at which SpaceX is pushing and Starship is developing. Even the target is even closer than that. But I think like probably within 10 years, definitely it's going to happen.
And also looks like Elon Musk is playing his cards very well. Looks, with the new election.
Yeah.
And he played a major role in that, and maybe that will further boost. So at least, irrespective of whether people like election outcome or not, but if people like space, Mars is getting closer. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But so okay, Mars is one aspect, and I think in terms of I guess anyone who's interested in space, I think that's seeing that happen is going to be very exciting.
Yeah.
But I think this come back closer to Earth, right? There's a lot of action happening in the satellite space.
Correct. Yeah.
With Starlink and all this constellation. And that some ways also very relevant for you because I think it seems like in the coming decades, we'll need a lot more satellites than currently what are in the orbit, right? And just talk about that market potential, etc., and how you're looking at from Skyroot perspective.
Sure. So right now, the space market totally is like $400 billion right now. And out of which, if you break it down, so over $100 billion is government budgets. Out of the $100 billion, more than 60 is only US. This is one country like doing 60 to 70 billion dollars every year. And then like there is $100 billion, over the $100 billion coming because of satellite television. So I think TV is like the biggest use case for a satellite. The direct to home dish we have at home, it comes directly being down from satellite. It's a $100 billion kind of business that itself. And then there is like launching, and then there is satellite manufacturing, and then there is a 20 billion. Launching is a 10 billion thing. So launching is just 10 billion. You just imagine, or a 400 billion market. So launch is only 10 billion, but that's the enabler for everything else. And then very few players. So that's what we saw as an opportunity. And then so that's over like total is, and then there is this GPS chipsets we use in the phones, and all that ground equipment for getting satellite services. All that is another 100 billion. So space is overall like $400 billion right now, and it is expected to by the next decade, by 2035. The McKinsey and World Economic Forum, they released a new report this year. They estimated it to become $1.8 trillion in the next decade. Out of that $1.8 trillion, around $800 billion will be direct space services, and then like the other trillion will be like extended. Like for example, Uber, we're able to go Uber because of GPS, for example. So, and also like, because there is TV, then there's revenue generated because of advertisements.
Yeah.
So all that, if you extend it, is $1.8 trillion. Just space in core itself is 800, is going to become 800.
How much of that will be launch revenue?
So launch by 2035 estimates go like, up to $50 billion. So it'll be like, 5x in the next decade.
And most of the revenue will be serviced by probably 10 to 20 companies at most.
Yeah. Mostly it is 10 to 20 companies. And also, of course, like the sovereign requirements of each country,
Yeah.
So that is also keep going up, A lot of satellites will be used for like, space defense and a lot of applications within the country. The sovereign capability also to be built for space assets. So, so this will be like the core requirements, like the key companies in satellite domain, mostly communication, and then like, the sovereign capability.
So Pawan, with Skyroot, last 6-7 years, you've obviously made pretty decent progress. But from here to, be one of those 10 players meaningfully participating in that $50 billion market, what will it take? What are the next few milestones over next 3 to 5 years you think Skyroot need to achieve to be say like we are absolutely world class when it comes to being able to put satellites into orbit?
Yeah. So I think first most important step is like reaching orbit successfully. That's what like the next launch we are targeting is, is our target to go to orbit and put satellites into space, into orbit basically. And then after that, like consistently putting them into orbit, like, consistent successes. We need like, 2-3 consistent successful launches so that the customers are comfortable enough to actually have like long contracts for like launching their satellites. And then I think we'll reach one launch every month slowly. And then the aspiration is to do like one launch every week down the line. And then so we'll do as many launches as possible in the coming years. And then like also like a plan is to build like the bigger vehicles, which will be reusable, which is like a leap ahead, and then which can put more mass to orbit at much lower costs. And then also address a wider market than what we can address with our current vehicles. So that's a step-by-step process. So most important is reaching orbit. Next is consistently reaching orbit. Then also extending the kind of payloads we launch with bigger vehicles. So I think this all will be the transition for us.
And how do you see like from, for competition-wise, SpaceX in some ways, quite ahead.
Yeah.
They were, I think, 90% market share of all launches in the world today, and the cost is coming down very fast.
Sure. Yeah.
What will it take for? Do you think you will have to compete with SpaceX, or you'll go after a different market? And
yeah, sure. That's a very good question. So basically, if you see like the Vikram vehicles which we're building right now, so they are custom built for small satellites. So over 80% of the satellites will be in the coming decades will be small satellites. That is satellites which are below 500 kilograms. Right. So, so these vehicles, what we are building, are custom built for them. So they are more like, cabs to go to space. It's more like you book your cab whenever you want and you go wherever you want. So that's what we do. Basically, the satellite customers will choose us because they can choose whenever they want to launch, and they can choose which orbit they want to go. So there are a lot of customers, increasing set of customers who need custom orbits.
Right.
And then they can't book like a $60 million SpaceX launch to launch a small 200 kilogram satellite to a very custom requirement. Like for example, there are customers who want like an orbit closer to the equator, so that like they can monitor their country better, like for example. And there are people who want specific time of the day so that they can see the brightness of what they want to look at, the customers which they want to serve. So different requirements keep coming up for various kind of customers. And you can't actually, for that specific requirement, you can't book a full rocket because the rest of the other customers may not want to go to the same destination. So space is not a single destination. And then you need like customized launches, which we are serving. And so we don't directly compete with SpaceX because SpaceX is more like, a train to go to space. So they're like, you can put like 100 satellites, 200 satellites in one go and launch from A to B. And all of them will put in the same orbit. But all customers may not want the same orbit. There are customers who want their own customized orbit. That's what we serve. So in that way, like highly differentiated with what SpaceX is doing. And so that's where we need like very low cost per launch. So we need to be able to do a launch in few $1 million. That's what. So then like a customer wants to pay a few $1 million, go to their destined orbit, and then like many customers come again and again. They book like probably 10 missions, 15 missions sometimes, even more. So that's the model we are in. In that, very hardly any players in the global segment. And then we have our own differentiation with respect to technology, cost, etc. And so we want to really be like one of the best in the world, and entering next year into the market. So that is something which we're going to do now. And then of course, as we build the future, the aspiration is to launch bigger satellite, bigger payload to orbit, and meet even wider requirements. And that is even a larger market to serve, basically. And once we get there, of course, SpaceX is already in that segment. So there also we'll have our own issues, because SpaceX is also building a vehicle for a particular purpose. So there are so many other purposes in which the vehicles can be built. So you have all kinds of vehicles. You have a business jet, you have a small jet, you have an A320, then you have an A38. So there are different kind of customers are served with different kinds of vehicles. So we will look at what markets are the right fit for us, and then pursue in that.
Got it. So basically what you're saying is, first of all, there's very high entry barrier. This is not a category where anyone can launch a company and become. It takes almost a decade. From inception until you are able to put satellites into orbit. And then there are a lot of specializations, unique requirements, and so on. So if you're going to only 10 to 20 companies which are doing it commercially, and you identify your niche and focus on that, there's going to be enough.
So right now they're single-digit companies right now, and barriers of entry is so high, and then the requirements are so varied in the customer base itself. So each company can find its own niches actually, and then serve a specific segment of the market. So that way, I think it's a very good opportunity in a way which we found it, and we have already completed 6 years of our journey, matured with a launch, and then very close to another launch. So we have our own differentiation, both the tech and the kind of customer segment we're dealing with. So then I think we have a clear roadmap of what we need to do next, and then what kind of customers we need to address next, etc. So I think it's a very tough, challenging market to crack. That itself is a big competitive edge for us.
But fortunately, you have covered a reasonable degree of distance. Some more to go. But once you kind of cross those hurdles, then you kind of become part of a very exclusive club. And then you are there, for a very long period of time. So this is, this satellite is obviously, satellite launch is what drives the sector in the. But there's been talks about whole space tourism thing for a long time. In fact, there's been I think Virgin Galactic and later Blue Origin had some demo flights. Is that also progressing? You think there's any hope? Like people like me and even you, while you're building rockets, but you want to go to space. Is that something we should look forward to in the coming years?
Oh no, absolutely. I think so. Blue Origin has done over close to 30 flights right now. And then it's getting better and better each year. And then I think it's going to get operational as quickly as possible. And then it's going to be regular flights which people can afford. I think they're pricing it less than $1 million right now, and it keeps going down per individual. So I think space tourism will come close and close. It's just that the certifications are so difficult because we have to put humans on a rocket basically. So that
is Blue Origin the only company focused on this?
So Blue Origin and there's Virgin Galactic, so the two companies which are pursuing this, and both have different concepts. So Blue Origin looks to be leading in the game right now with a large number of launches already been done.
And what does the trip to space look like? From what will be the Blue Origin offering? You go for how long? How far do you go? How long do you stay there?
So it's a suborbital space tourist vehicle. So it just goes to 100 kilometers and then comes back.
Okay.
It is just a few minutes.
$1 million for that.
So but I think it's something which is it's a great experience to pay for. So right now probably only the rich people can pay it, but then down the line people can afford it as it becomes so regular, and and the technology also goes a little bit further. So I think it can be I think it's technically possible to do space tourism at a ticket cost of a few lakhs of Indian rupees in lakhs. So that is possible. It is just evolution of more and more flights, and then more and more technology, more and more reusability. So that will come there, and I think the space flights will be affordable, few lakhs. Many people can afford for a space flight, and then for a few minutes trip, and you can see So even when you go in aircraft, right, you only see blue, right? So only in a space flight you can see black
Yeah.
of cosmos, and you can see that thin the atmosphere around the Earth is a
Yeah.
blue shining line,
Yeah.
and it has its own over what is famously called as overview effect. The moment you see Earth from space,
Yeah.
it creates a different perspective.
So why do you explain what is overview effect?
So it's more like a feeling that see on Earth you have like a lot of borders. Like every country has its own borders. We feel like the feeling is like all divided. Here, the moment you go to space and you see Earth from space, you feel like it's one single entity, and then you feel like probably you'll feel like why are we having all these divisions? Humanity is one. And then that gives like it's kind of like a zen kind of a feeling where you're looking at Earth from space, feeling that unity, feeling that and also like how delicate the planet is, which we need to protect. So that feeling which astronauts experience the moment they see Earth from space is something to live for. Probably everybody needs to have that experience, that overview effect from space.
All right. So if enough people have the overview effect, probably we'll have less problems here on Earth. We can focus on literally the bigger picture.
Bigger picture, yeah.
And one of the things you mentioned, I've only read about it. Obviously, I've not gone to space so far. Hopefully someday. But you from the space when you watch Earth, you really see the atmosphere is just a tiny sliver. Like it's so fragile.
Yeah.
And so delicate, and while we continue to unfortunately abuse the atmosphere, pumping in so much greenhouse gases and so on, and which is now resulting in so many adverse weather effects, right? Getting worse and worse every year. And I think space technologies overall have a big role to play in climate management, right? In the coming decades.
Absolutely. So, for example, like methane emissions, like for example, gas coming out of from the ground, so that almost has 25% cause of global warming in the world, right? So gas emissions, especially methane, and then you have carbon dioxide, etc., etc. So now there are like satellites can track where these emissions are. You can curb those emissions. You can also know which units are emitting carbon dioxide. You can get those signatures from the satellite, and you can use that data for actually bringing it down and addressing the right issues, and then avoiding leakages, etc. So I think that is one really good effect because space gives that synoptic view. The entire Earth, you can see the entire Earth in a day. So you can actually figure out a lot of things which are emissions, especially emissions you can detect, and the satellites specifically tuned to detect those emissions and then curb them.
Yeah, let's zoom out a little bit away from the Earth now. What are just take next 1, 2, even 3 decades?
Yeah.
Which part of our solar system, including sun, that you think across variety of missions, whether government missions or private missions, what are the things people want to study, and we have a realistic shot of going there and studying? Because even today our understanding of solar system is very coarse grained. We don't know precisely what's where and so on. So what are your hopes and expectations? And hopefully eventually Skyroot's contribution also of exploring solar system.
So basically I think even moon, which is the closest, it takes a couple of days to go to moon. This is the closest object to go. So still we don't know a lot of things about moon. So even moon itself is like less explored. And then next is of course Mars, because Mars is only sustainable place where you can actually have a self-sustainable civilization, because it has resources enough to sustain a self-sustained civilization. It is like very close to Earth, and then it has multiple advantages. It has an atmosphere, very thin, but it has an atmosphere, and you can generate oxygen from that atmosphere.
Yeah, earlier you were sharing about the abundance of water on Mars. Just going to share that.
Yeah. So Mars has a lot of water in the form of ice. Basically, it's frozen water. And then it's covered.
It's confirmed. It's not speculative anymore.
It's confirmed, and then it is mostly covered with dust. So it's not like physically you see Mars as like a desert land kind of a thing, but underneath it there's a lot of water, especially at the poles. And then if you actually melt water on Mars, you'll have a kilometer deep of ocean across the surface of Mars.
Wow, that much water.
That much water. So there's plenty of water. So there is like very important resource. And it has like iron, it has silicon, it has like enough constituents to actually build a self-sustaining civilization. It has carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide can be electrolyzed to get oxygen, which can be used for breathing. And water can be electrolyzed to get hydrogen for rocket fuel and oxygen again for breathing. So I think you have all the elements on Mars required to build a civilization then. And so Mars is something very, very important for like, becoming a spacefaring civilization. And then its gravity is also like, 40% of Earth, unlike Moon is like very light and it's like almost 1/6 of Earth. So even gravity also is very important for human sustenance. So gravity is also is not too low. And sun rises similar to how it's on Earth. We can't believe it's probably a great coincidence that Mars also has, it takes only 24 hours for a rotation.
Exactly 24 hours.
It's 24 hours, a little bit, few minutes more.
Wow, amazing.
So yeah, so just imagine like both Earth and Mars are having like the same rotation, and then you'll see like probably you wake up on Mars, you'll feel like Earth. It's like the sun rising in a similar kind of rhythm.
Yeah.
So I think Mars is something which has like enough resources to sustain a civilization on its own without like need of Earth. So that's a very exciting future to look into. And then if you go further, but there is Venus. One side of Earth is Mars, the other side is Venus.
Yeah.
So Venus is closer to the sun, so it's super hot, and Venus has super high pressure on the surface. It's like a pressure cooker, very high heated pressure cooker, and then it has a lot of acids, so it's not convenient for life. But still, Venus is interesting in a way that as you go higher altitude above the ground, so there is like a particular zone which scientists believe can house life. So which is like convenient pressure and temperatures where life can sustain. So that is also a point of exploration. In fact, ISRO is planning a confirmed mission to Venus as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So that is also
It's going to study Venus from outside, or is it actually going to?
It's going to go to a location where it will be convenient to find life, kind of a thing. So multiple missions to Venus. In fact, in 60s there are several missions. 50s itself, several missions planned were planned to Venus. We have decent understanding of Venus, but still we didn't have the understanding of that portion where the life can sustain.
Yeah.
So that is also something which is interesting. And so that means if you want to have life in Venus, it will be like a floating, it's a floating life in a particular part of the atmosphere because it's impossible to be on the surface. And then if you go further from Mars, you have moons of Jupiter. So moons of Jupiter are also have oceans.
Which are the most promising moons there?
So the most promising, there are four moons on Jupiter. And Europa is the thing which is of interest for most people. And recently NASA has sent a mission to Europa, and then Europa is having liquid oceans beneath the ice crust. So and there are a lot of geothermal activities which can generate a lot of energy there, and then there could be life in the water there. And then there is other planets as well which have other moons as well of Jupiter, which has an atmosphere. It has water as well. So there are, but interesting one is Europa of the four, and Ganymede is another one, and Callisto is another one. Then Io is the fourth one. So there are four moons. Most interesting will be Europa, and then Ganymede is also. In fact, Ganymede is the largest moon in the solar system. It's bigger than Mercury. Mercury is a planet, and then it is bigger than Mercury. Yeah. And then after Jupiter, we have Saturn. Saturn has 146 moons. So many moons. Out of that, Titan is quite famous, and Enceladus is another one. Enceladus is also in fact, Enceladus has springs of water coming up. And then it has also been observed that there is organic compounds in that jets of water which comes up. So it has water, it has organic compounds, so there could be life there. So closest is Mars, and then there is Europa. Enceladus will be the next two, which will be good to explore for.
And are there missions planned in some of these?
Yeah, so NASA is planning mostly orbiters, missions just to study where things are. There could be landers in the future, and then so there are missions, and I think what is stopping exploration is the cost of launch. Because you need to pay hundreds of millions of dollars to do a mission, and then once it becomes so cheap, with reusable vehicles, etc., becoming quite regular in the future, I think we'll see more and more missions being affordable, going, and then seeing a lot of learning a lot of things which we don't know today. Because every mission has a surprise.
Yeah.
Water on moon, nobody expected. For there's water on the moon, there's water on the Mars, right? So a lot of discoveries keep coming on simple missions, and it's very important. Like space exploration gives a new perspective to life, and even the Hubble Space Telescope and recent James Webb Space Telescope, they give like new perspective of where are we on the universe, how big it is, and then what are the in fact, like there was an image released by James Webb Space Telescope, and in fact the view was like similar to a grain of sand putting in that was just the view which it has taken a picture of, and then there were like there's some 7,000 galaxies in that minute view. Yeah. So you can see like how much vast the universe is. It changes the perspective. And then like one more very interesting thing about these telescopes is that you are actually capturing light which are billions of years away. So in fact, like they captured a James Webb Space Telescope captured light photons which were originated 13.1 billion years ago. So the universe was 13.8 billion years ago. It's just like the initial light from the universe we were able to capture. Yeah,
that's the other, I think, big potential advantage of space. I think the kind of scientific exploration we can do from space, James Webb, and then I think for even for gravitational waves, a lot of experiments are being planned which can be done so much better from space.
Yes,
I think space continues to be, I think probably most fascinating thing out there. I think as a space enthusiast, one can only wish that we are making more investments and more missions so we can learn about these things faster and faster. But I think, Pawan, I want to maybe end on this note, that since 7 years ago you decided to build this rocket company, made a lot of inroads.
Yeah.
What is there are entrepreneurship overall in India is thriving.
Yeah.
But perhaps less number of people are signing up for more audacious project.
Yeah.
What is your learning? What does it take? And what is your advice or encouragement to people to sign up for these tougher, more bold initiatives, which will have probably much higher chance of failure.
Yeah.
But also you can move technology forward. You can achieve significant breakthroughs. Which in the safe opportunities may not offer you that.
Yeah. So I think like the core observation I had over the years is that there's no dearth of ideas. Like, people have phenomenal ideas. I've seen like, many of my friends, putting forth like extraordinary ideas, really ambitious, ideas which might work really well as well.
Yeah.
But only thing is that taking that step to start, building a venture to eventually achieve it is something very few people do, mainly because they think that it is something too impossible. The thought that it is very difficult and impossible, makes us not take the first step.
Yeah.
So I think that spirit of entrepreneurship, I think now it's like growing more and more. And we see like a lot of deep tech companies emerging, like hundreds of them emerging with like, amazing products and thinking. And then also the ecosystem is also right now is just building up, whether it is investments or like, even government support in the form of, grants or funds or in terms of projects, whatever it may be. So it's just like in probably that supporting environment is also building up right now. So, and then like entrepreneurship is no longer like, previously it was like if you're starting a company is like, parents won't like it. And the environment around you is also not encouraging enough. They don't see entrepreneurship as a very, great venture to have. So that is changing right now. I think right now we're just in the transition phase where environment is getting, more convenient. And then like, even like there's a lot of acceptance from the society that you start companies. And then so these ideas actually turn into real steps to move forward. So I think that spirit of starting is what I think is lacking, because there's amazing people who are very high potential with great ideas, not taking that first step.
But let's say people, see, it in some ways it takes a lot of courage to take first step, especially if it is something totally new, not been done before and so on.
Yeah.
What is your experience? What did you learn along the way, or what kind of help you got along the way, which you might not have anticipated on day one?
Yeah. So first thing is actually the understanding that, thinking very big, right? So what happens is that when you, for example, building a rocket company from India, is like the thought itself is, like when we met you, you might have thought like, what are these guys doing the very first attempt, right? But the point is that thought of like doing something very big and ambitious, what people think is that the probability of failure is high. But from all my learnings and observation, what I observed is it's actually the opposite. By doing big, bold things, the probability of success is actually high, because people want to invest in you, people want to work with you, governments want to support with you. So that kind of environment is actually different. So the thinking itself is, I think, a major thing. That's what the learning which I had is like thinking, doing big and bold things in whatever you're doing is actually increase the success probability of like the success in that, rather than like the opposite, which most people think. So that is one aspect. And the learnings also is that you'll get support on the way. Basically, the probability is very high. And then like, if we have the like great investors, and if you have like governments to support, which is all there right now. And then we have like people who can like come along with you, hop onto the journey, and then build a company along with you. If all that is already there, I mean, I think you have to just meet the right people.
No, so, yeah, that's a great insight. I think, if people are willing to take that first step, then the support will come from unexpected corners.
Absolutely.
And you are right. I think there are enough people who want to support bold, ambitious ideas, but you need to first support yourself.
Correct.
You need to show their courage of conviction and deal with the uncertainty that comes,
Absolutely.
with that. But I think, so look, Skyroot is, first of all, it's a great business. I think, you are well on your way to be among the top 10 space companies in the world, which will be a matter of immense pride for India. But also, I think the kind of company you're building, Pawan, and that is a great template for, I think, is inspiration for a lot of, the younger entrepreneurs to start signing up for, more and more bolder opportunities. And so we can have a lot more Elon Musk, of Indian origin also in near future. Yeah. But it's great, to talk to you. I think I keep rooting for Skyroot. I feel very happy about the progress you have made, and very excited about what's to come.
Yeah. And in fact, like, we're absolutely grateful that, Mukesh, you're part of our journey since day one. And also one of the learning is through you also. Like, we have learned a lot through you. So what not to do, at what different times. So I think like, because you've been an entrepreneur, like, on the way, actually, entrepreneurs helping other entrepreneurs is also very important. This is one big example that, you not only invested, helped us during the journey. I think there's also one very important support system where like probably more and more entrepreneurs should support other entrepreneurs as well. So that will also create a large impact. And always pleasure, speaking with you.
Amazing. Cool. We'll keep chatting and keep, watching out for the progress of Skyroot.
Thanks, Mukesh. Thank you.
At SparX, we aim to bring to you stories of exponential impact. We share in-depth analysis of what goes behind success stories. If you find our conversations interesting, you can join us by subscribing to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to SparX on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or any other audio platform of your choice. If you have any suggestions on who we should invite or what topics we need to cover, just let us know in the comments. We are always listening, looking for ways to improve, and keep getting better as we go along.